Technoton, Minsk, Belarus. Hope all of you guys are in a good mood and health. We are continuing our webinar session, and before we start, I would like to confirm with you guys that we have a good connection. You can hear me, you can see me. Please confirm. You can drop your messages on the chat. Okay, I get a confirmation from my colleagues that you can see me, you can hear me. That's great. We are continuing our express webinar sessions, and last time my colleague spoke about fuel flow meters DFM, and today we are continuing in this topic, and today we will talk about bigger brother of small DFM fuel flow meters, DFM marine and DFM industrial. As you can see on this first slide of presentation, there are wide range of fuel flow meters that we have. There are small fuel flow meters, and the bigger fuel flow meters, and the large fuel flow meters. So last time my colleague explained you about fuel flow meters with a flow rate capacity up to 6,000 liters an hour. So that's quite an important parameter. So just please keep in mind that when we selecting the right fuel flow meter model, first and most important parameter is a flow rate, minimum flow rate and maximum flow rate. So on this slide, you can see there are single chamber meters, differential fuel flow meters made of brass, flow meters made of duralumin, flow meters with flanges, and fuel flow meters with a thread connector types. There are different models. So our accent today will be on DFM marine and DFM industrial. So as you can see, DFM marine, they produced only as a single chamber meters, and so there's just one chamber, and that means that flow meter can measure flow only one direction. So there is no fuel flow meter marine, DFM marine differential one, because it's quite difficult to manufacture in one body flow meter DFM marine differential. Frankly speaking, that's quite difficult, and it totally doesn't make sense, because installation after it will be a huge challenge for installation team. The purpose, as you understand, the purpose of all flow meter is to measure flow rate, either flow rate instant fuel consumption, liters an hour, or total fuel consumption. So on this scheme, you can see that there are flow meter installed on the supplier line or feed line, and one single chamber meter installed on the return line. That's a typical, quite simple fuel system of any vehicle, of any diesel generator, of any machinery that consumes fuel. The only difference probably would be some burners that have a gravity flow, and there is no any pump to produce fuel, to deliver the fuel from the tank to the engine. The purpose of having, if we review this scheme in more details, if we just put flow meter on the feed line and we'll be measuring the fuel just in the feed line, we won't get accurate engine fuel consumption information. We'll be getting the fuel flow, or in other words, we'll be getting flow rate produced by the fuel pump. That's different than actual engine fuel consumption, because we don't take into account the fuel in the return line. Engine consumes, depending on the operation mode, either it's running in idle mode, nominal mode, overload mode. Same engine can consume different amount of fuel, but fuel pump has to deliver enough fuel to make sure that that engine will have enough fuel to satisfy its operation at different modes. So that's why, in order to have correct actual engine fuel consumption information, we need to count fuel in the return line too. So that here on the scheme we can see that it's a differential scheme using two DFM marine fuel flow meters. The same story is DFM industrial. What are the main goals, what the purpose and main goals of using flow meters, small flow meters DFM marine, flow meters DFM industrial, is to have a clear understanding on how much fuel each particular machine, vehicle, diesel generator, burner, vessel, any type of application that we will review later on consumed. So at the same time, using our fuel flow meters, we can have a clear understanding how much fuel the machine consumes at idle mode, how much fuel the machine consumes at nominal mode, how much fuel the machine consumes at overload mode. Also, we can have actual running time of the machinery based on the flow rate. So as far as there is a fuel movement in the supply and return lines, that makes sense to consider that the machine is running. So obviously, when there is no any fuel flow in the supply and return line, it makes sense to consider that the machine is parked or it's simply switched off and not running. Also, depending on policy in a company, fleet operator can consider how efficiently the fuel used, how efficiently the machine used, either there is a fuel theft or not, plan servicing of the machine. So all that we can get based on the fuel flow meters that we do. On this scheme, you can see a wide range of application where we can use DFM marine, specifically DFM marine, because we are talking about DFM marine today and DFM industrial later on. Usually that machines where the flow rates bigger than 500 liters an hour. DFM marine flow meters that we do today can satisfy flow rate from 500 liters an hour up to 4,000 liters an hour. If we look at these applications, there's quite a powerful mining trucks, locomotives with massive engines up to 3,500 HP, vessels with massive engines, diesel generators up to probably 4,500 HP. Also, we can consider to use DFM marine, DFM industrial on stationary tanks to see how much fuel will dispense from that particular storage tank. So as we can see, you guys already sending us some questions. So my colleague just reminds me that question answer session we will do after the main webinar presentation. So we will have a time about 15-20 minutes just to answer your questions. So please note all of your questions and we will answer them later on. Just give you a general idea on a technical specification of the DFM marine fuel flow meters. You can see that minimum fuel consumption that we can detect using DFM marine is 20 liters an hour. So that's a consumption. Please understand that fuel consumption is one parameter and flow rate is another parameter. Because in example, Average middle-sized truck, let's say Mercedes Actros, consume about 1.5 up to 3 liters an hour at idle mode. At nominal mode, it consumes between 15 and 25, maybe 30 liters. At overload mode, it may consume up to 50 liters an hour. Just rough figures to you guys, so you will just to see the difference between the fuel consumption and flow rate. At the same time, on the same Mercedes Actros truck, we can have a flow rate produced by the fuel pump, delivery pump, that delivers fuel from the tank to the engine, like it's indicated on this scheme. This can be absolutely different. It usually 3, 5, sometimes even 10 times higher than actual engine fuel consumption of the machine. So on a Mercedes Actros truck, we can have easily flow rate up to 250 liters an hour or even more. That's quite important figures, fuel consumption and flow rate. Please understand it. It's quite important, and especially when you in this discussing and selecting different flow meters with our sales managers, it's quite important to have this parameter. Flow rate is a key parameter. Flow rate, if you can get flow rate, minimum flow rate and maximum flow rate, we can 100% give you exact DFM models that should be used on that particular machine. So continuing reviewing general technical specification of DFM Marine. So you can see we can achieve accuracy 99.5%. That's quite good. So if you compare other solutions that are available on the market, error of 0.5% is very little. Imagine 100 liters fuel consumption and just 0.5 liters is error. It's quite good, and we can achieve it using DFM Marine fuel flow meters. Here also just a general understanding on the models that we have. DFM Marine available, DFM Marine 1000, DFM Marine 2000, and DFM Marine 4000. On this scheme, I'll give you an idea how we should identify either we understand this information correctly. For example, you ordered some flow meter from us, doesn't matter. Either it's marine or just a regular small flow meter or DFM industrial, and you just want to understand what I got in this box from Technoton. So first, DFM, that's digital fuel flow meter, meaning. The second number, 4000 on this scheme, that means the maximum flow rate that flow meter can cope. That means 4000 liters an hour, maximum flow rate that DFM Marine can cope with. And when this flow rate is followed, when we have this flow meter installed on the machine and the flow rate is not crossing 4000 liters an hour, we can assure you that we can achieve accuracy of 99.5% or 0.5% inaccuracy error. The third parameter that we can see here, like here on example C, that means there is a display on a flow meter, and using the magnetic key we can check different parameters on a fuel flow meter. So from another point, DFM Marine with a display, it can serve like autonomous fuel flow meter. So you can transmit data to the server and using some telematics device and have this information available on the server. And at the same time, you can check some main parameters like total fuel consumption, total running time of the machine, fuel consumption at idle, nominal, overload modes, running time, total, idle, nominal modes, overload modes. You can check it simply on a display of the flow meter. The fourth parameter here, you can see type of output interface or output signal. So DFM DFM marine, in this case, we are reviewing, goes with DFM CAN interface that correspond to J1949 standard. The last two parameters, you can see F, that's type of connector on a few lines, either F, it's flange, or T, thread. And the last letter is material of the body, either A, duralumin, or L, brass. On this picture, you can see DFM marine fuel flow meters made of duralumin, how it looks like, with the flanges and with the thread. So depending on the app where you're planning to use DFM marine, it's quite important also parameter to have a understanding either the required thread connector or flange. So that's why when you in talks with our sales team, please, first of all, the flow rate is quite important one. But secondly, we also need to understand what connector should be used, either thread or flange. So imagine if you order flow meter with a flange, but in reality, you will require a flow meter with a thread, obviously you'll need to adjust an additional connector. An additional work will be required, and obviously an additional expenses will be required. So it's quite important. So please note type of connector used on the fuel lines when you're reviewing the application, either it's truck or diesel generator or any other app. Try to get the, first of all, flow rate, minimum, maximum flow rate. It will be ideal for us. And the secondly, type of connector, either thread or flange. On this slide, you can see flow meters made of brass. So they look like a golden flow meters. So obviously, depending on the environment when the flow meter will be used, it's also quite important to consider either get flow meter with duralumin or fuel flow meter with a brass. Let's say you have a client that has a vessel and that the vessel is running in a sea. As you understand, sea conditions, sea environment is quite salty. And if we go for duralumin flow meter, so after some time, the material, duralumin, can get, how to say, the salt, the salty environment will make an impact on the duralumin, and it get rust. With brass material, it's quite resistant material, and it doesn't matter what environment there, either salty condition, dusty condition. Brass material is resistant to those environmental conditions. Right. So also I'd like to attract your attention on fuel flow meter on the right is an autonomous fuel flow meter. It has just a display. So for those clients that doesn't require any telematics device or doesn't want to spend money for GSM traffic, for subscribing to the web server, he just wants to know flow rate and engine consumption, flow rates, liters an hour, engine running times at different modes. That's it. Autonomous fuel flow meter in this case is a model to consider. On the left, it's first of all flow meter with flanges, and secondly, it's autonomous flow meter. As you can see, there's a display, and thirdly, there's an interface. So, as I said earlier, this flow meter is like universal. You can check different parameters on the screen, and also you can connect it to some telematics device and transmit data to the server. When it makes sense to consider such a flow meter model, let's say client doesn't have enough budget, but in the future he's planning to expand his system from an autonomous flow meter to online system. He's planning to build like online platform to sitting in the office, logging into the web server and checking different location of the parameters, at the same time checking consumption and engine running time of particular machines on the platform without getting out from the office. So this model is the one to consider. On these pictures, we have autonomous and flow meter with an interface made of brass. So when it comes to data analyzing the parameters that we get in from the flow meters, there are more than 30 different useful parameters. So they're just general parameters like many of the partners, many of our clients consider useful, like fuel consumption, total, and engine running time. But we are giving much more with the help of our DFM flow meters with scan interface. We're getting more than 20 parameters. There are fuel consumption, total, fuel consumption, idle mode, fuel consumption, nominal, overload mode, engine running time, total, engine running time, idle, engine running time, nominal, and overload modes. Also, if there is someone trying to cheat the system, obviously there are some guys that service in the trucks or even drivers. They understand the basic principle of the electronics, that there must be some pulse detecting mechanism, and they consider we can use some magnet and increase number of pulses applying to the flow meter body, so the fuel consumption will be increased, and so the person responsible for monitoring consumption of the machine will be confused and will consider that that machine consumed much more fuel than in reality. And rest of the fuel, that person, other person, the driver, I don't want to blame each driver, but I suppose based on our statistics and experience, more than 50% of fuel theft happens due to drivers. So obviously they have salaries, and depending on the region, they want to make much more money. In some regions, they not getting enough salaries. So even if they get enough salaries, if there is a way to get extra money, they will use that opportunity to get that, and they just simply steal the fuel. So as you understand, I don't know what is the price of liters of diesel in your countries, but in Belarus, 1 liter of diesel is about $0.85. It used to be around 0.35 about 6-7 years ago, but the price is growing all the time here. As our government authorities says, prices for fuels in Belarus, they are not increasing, they're changing. But they're changing only one way. So continuing our webinar about the marine and DFM industrial. So those of you guys that already had a chance to play around with the fuel flow meters, marine or DFM industrial or small flow meters, probably or you already got different parameters, and indicated here on the slide. If not, so we'll be glad to help you. So please ask your sales team if you're getting just total fuel consumption, but you want to get also fuel consumption at idle, optimal, nominal modes, etc. So why not? Let's expand your telematics, let's expand your possibilities, and I'm sure your end clients will appreciate that. On this screen, you can see flow meter like this one. Right. My colleague will assist you with zooming in to show you how it looks in reality. Okay. So, usually each DFM Marine and DFM Industrial goes not only like it is like a flow meter with a display and a cable. If there is a screen on a flow meter, definitely there should be magnetic key like it's indicated on the slide of the presentation. So using the magnetic key, we can easily switch from one screen to another one. So I don't have a magnetic key with me right now, but it goes. Trust me, it goes. We just get this flow meter from the technical department, the shortest one way to get it, the idea is we can simply apply the magnetic key and switch from one screen to another one. Screen numbers you can see here on this slide. Total fuel consumption, counter, engine operation time. There are around 14 different screens that you can see on a display. At the same time, all those parameters we can get on the output interface connected to the telematics device. Okay. So also quite, just my colleague brought a magnetic key, so I'll show you how it works. Thank you. Hope you can see it in the camera. Okay, you can see. Hope you can see. Screen number 1. And corresponding value. I apply magnetic key again. Need to find the right way where to apply. So okay, there's a special way how to apply the magnetic key from the right to the left, I suppose. Just my colleague assistant. So hope you see how it works, and you will have a time to play around with it yourself if you haven't had this opportunity to do before. So please try yourself. If need any assistance, just ask our support team or your sales manager. Also quite important to tell that DFM Marine and DFM Industrial, they can give information on the output, either on a display or an output interface in cubic meters or gallons. So it depending on the telematic system you're using, or in general measuring systems you're using, either in America or Africa, Asia, Australasia, you might be using different measuring systems. So there is such a possibility to select the right measuring system for yourself. Any flow meter with an interface is configurable. So using service kit S6 or service kit DFM, we can easily access brain of the DFM flow meter and check different settings. We can adjust flow rate ranges for detecting idle mode, for detecting nominal mode, overload mode. We also can apply correcting coefficient. For example, if we install the flow meter on a diesel generator and we see that we are not getting accurate fuel consumption information, let's say we're getting 97%, and you just keep in your head, I have a 3% error. Please don't panic. Ask your sales manager, ask our technical team. We'll assist you how that error can be corrected, either using settings inside of the flow meter, or just using an additional mechanical ways, using some additional filters or fittings, how to lower the inaccuracy error. So please know that it's quite important. So accessing different counters on a flow meter, you can use with the help of service kit. So my colleague reminds me that we have a limited time for this webinar session, and so I just need to speed up and not be so detailed like I am now. So anyway, for more details you can get from our sales managers, from our support team. So you're welcome. Drop us email, drop us message in a chat. We'll answer. As you understand, DFM Marine, DFM Industrial, they go as single chamber meters. But you may have a question. How, at the beginning, you said that we need to have a differential fuel flow meter, we need to measure fuel flow in the feed line, fuel flow in the return line in order to have accurate fuel consumption. You're right. We need to do that. For that purpose, we have to use DFM Marine on the feed line and DFM Marine on the return line. In this case, we will have differential fuel consumption. On this scheme, you can see on the left one flow meter that is installed on the return line is configured as a slave. Flow meter that installed on the feed line or supply line is configured as a master. So the master is responsible for the flow rate in the feed line and also calculating the difference between the fuel in the supply line and fuel in the return line. So here's a master, request flow meter configured as a slave to calculate the difference. Hope that's clear. There are some applications that requires not differential consumption, but client wants to have total fuel consumption. He had, let's say, 2 lines coming out from the storage tank, and he wants to know flow rate in 2 lines. Let's say there is a storage tank and there are 2 diesel generators. One line goes to generator 1, another line goes to generator 2. Okay? But client wants to know not only fuel consumption of each diesel generator, he wants to know total, and also wants to know fuel volume dispensed from the tank. So configuring also one flow meter on one line as a master and another flow meter on the return line as a slave, we can set settings inside of the master to calculate not difference, not deducting fuel in the return line from the supply line, but add fuel in the return line, or in our case with diesel generators in another line, and have a total fuel dispensing from the tank. Hope that's clear. If not, so please drop us a message or get in contact with our sales manager. But from my point of view, it's pretty simple. Master, slave, they communicate with each other, either deducting the flow rate from on one line from another one, or just summarizing. Here's another interesting example of using DFM marine on a diesel generator farm. Like here you can see very interesting scenario. We have 3 diesel generators. Client wants to monitor fuel consumption of each diesel generator, and at the same time he wants to know fuel level in the tank. So here we built S6 system, S6 cabling system, and each device got a unique network address. DFM marine, one address, another DFM marine, another address, another DFM marine, another address. Same with DUT CAN. DUT CAN 1, 101, DUT CAN 2, 102, etc. On this scheme, the core, the heart of the system is DUT GSM. It collects information from all these units, from all DFM marines, and all DUT CANs, and transmit the data to the web server. At the same time, as you can see, DUT GSM installed in one tank of the diesel generator, and at the same time, it measures fuel level in that tank and also transmit fuel level from other tanks of other diesel generators and fuel consumption based on DFM marine from other diesel generators to the web server. DFM Industrial. DFM Industrial and DFM Marine, as I said earlier, that bigger brothers of small flow meters. The difference is a flow rate ranges that DFM Marine and DFM Industrial can cope. But there's also difference between DFM Marine and DFM Industrial. Unfortunately, we didn't we didn't want actually we want it, but it's quite difficult to bring DFM Industrial because it's quite heavy, and our warehouse around 400 meters from our head office.